Welcome everyone. On this video, we'll be talking you through the Good Governance Guide to familiarize yourself with the tool available. The aim of the Good Governance Guide is to provide guidance to civil society alliances on how to improve their governance structures and processes, which will be key to achieving the network's strategic objective on sustainability and its cross-cutting enabler on governance. We encourage CSAs and civil society alliances to use the guide during the annual general meetings or other key workshops for planning and evaluation purposes to ensure good governance and long-term sustainability. The document can be completed online via the PDF that we have here, or can be printed out and completed during a face-to-face workshop in handwritten. The governance structure infographic, which is here on the left, shows the overall structure of the Sun Civil Society Network, Scaling Up Nutrition Civil Society Network, and wider Sun movement. It is useful to familiarize yourself with this infographic so you can see where you fit in with the reporting lines of the Civil Society Network and also within the wider Sun movement. The Good Governance Principles are a set of key principles that we expect from all members of the Sun Civil Society Network, and this helps to build trust and confidence across the global network and our partners and key stakeholders. The Sun Civil Society Network has two categories, as you can see here, where the mouse is. These are the Civil Society Alliances and Civil Society Efforts. To be a Civil Society Alliance, you must complete the membership form, which can be found on the Sun Civil Society Network website, and meet the essential indices, which we will go through shortly. Civil society efforts are usually more loosely formed coalitions and will meet many of the criteria in the indices, but will need to meet all of the red asterisk ones, which we will go through shortly. The partnering cycle just shows you a really great example of the steps and the whole cycle of becoming a full civil society alliance. The Good Governance Indices, this is the key exercise which we will go through for this Good Governance tool. The tool can be used as a self-assessment of the health and progress made by your Sun Civil Society Alliance or civil society effort. We encourage you to carry out this exercise in a workshop with the key individuals from your network. The indices are split into three different indexes, which you will be familiar with from the Sun Civil Society Network annual survey. And these include the Governance Index, the Sustainability Index, and the Diversity and Inclusion Index. When completing these checklists, you will see the statements marked with the red asterisks. These are mandatory for civil society alliances and will be essential for civil society efforts to become a civil society alliance. So as you can see here, the Civil Society Alliance strategy would be one of the key documentations that we would expect to see with a civil society alliance. Now, a civil society effort might not have one of these, but to become a civil society alliance, they would need to develop one of these and implement one of these processes or documentation. To go through the first index, which is the Governance Index, the first index is split into 4 sections. So we have key documentation here, as you can see. We have governance structure, which is here, membership, which is here, and operations, which is here. As you can see, the first column, this covers the document, process, or structure that should be in place in bold. As you can see, some of them have a red asterisk. These are mandatory ones to become a civil society alliance. Underneath, there are some useful resources and information to help guide you when developing this area, or can be used as a reference to ensure that your area of work is up to date. So, for example, in a governance structure, we would expect to see a steering committee for all civil society alliances. And here, this includes some of these key elements of that. The second column is the area that you will complete. This is the scoring. Here is where you will add the score based on what you have in place. The scoring is as follows. So if your civil society alliance or civil society effort has completed this, you can mark a 2 in the column. If it is in progress or in development, you can mark a 1. And if you do not have this, you can mark it as a 0. However, if you do not have this, that's absolutely fine. We will then support you to be able to develop these areas, whether they are documents or processes or structures. Then in the third column, you add any additional comments or suggestions emerging from your group discussions. So as you're working through this in a workshop setting, we recommend that you discuss this as a group and can add in any comments and suggestions on that. If you have it all in place and it is all up to date, that is fantastic, and you don't need to fill in too much here. It would be ideal if you could link to this documentation if it is their case, or you can add any comments that you would like to see in there that we can reference when we are reviewing your Good Governance Guide results. At the end of the governance indice, as you've gone through all of them, once you've completed each checkbox, you will then come to your governance scoring. This scoring system is where you can include the final scoring that you received in the box here. And then the corresponding text box you can write if you agree or disagree with the scoring and explain why. Make sure to capture the agreements and disagreements you have within the Alliance, as they make up an important important part of learning. So say you score 5 points, you would be in the critical or initial, depending on establishment date of context, and you can add that in there. However, if you score between 21 and 26 points, it means you're in a sustained situation for your governance. And you can agree or disagree and talk about them, add your comments in these checkboxes here. And this will then help us be able to establish our lessons learned and how we can support further. The next checklist is the sustainability checklist. As you can see, some of these also have a red asterisk, but not all of them. So an advocacy strategy or a communication strategy are not mandatory for a civil society alliance. However, we would expect to see them within a sustainable civil society alliance. But some of them will have red asterisks next to them. This checklist is split into the following sections: strategy, knowledge management, monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning, multi-stakeholder CSA engagement with country stakeholders. So this will include the Sun multi-stakeholder platform, the Sun government focal point, UN nutrition, Sun business network, the Sun donor network, and any other key thematic networks that you work with. And the final one is resource mobilization. And this is here where we will talk about the areas and understanding of how sustainable your civil society alliance is. So, for example, in resource mobilization, we would expect to see civil society alliances have an annual audit of their financial statements. Fundraising plans is not mandatory for civil society alliance, but we expect to see them for a sustainable civil society alliance. So your scoring, as you can see, is in here. You'd put a 2 if it's in place. In progress, you'd put a 1, or not in place, a 0, and any comments and suggestions in the text box there. For the CSA engagement with other stakeholders, we would expect to see, we would prefer you to be as honest as possible in this area to talk about the key areas of the multi-stakeholder platform and the other networks that you work with and your relationship. We have categorized these as insufficient, sufficient, good, and excellent. You can score them based on your scoring here and put them through into this text box. And then into the next bit, you can put comments and suggestions. Here is where we would prefer to have some comments and suggestions. If the relationship is going well, we would like to see some comments and suggestions on why that is going so well. And we can use those as best practice and good examples to showcase with other civil society alliances and civil society efforts to help them improve their relationships with their multi-stakeholder platforms in country. And as we come to the end of the sustainability index, you will see, as with the previous governance index, there is a scoring system. You can include the final scoring that you will have received in the box here, and also in the corresponding text box here. you will be able to write if you agree or disagree with the scoring and explain why. Again, make sure to capture the agreements and disagreements you have within the Alliance and the discussions that are taking place so we can use these for learnings. The final checklist is the diversity and inclusion checklist. And this includes various different areas around diversity and inclusion, and it is completed in the same way as the other two indexes earlier. It is a shorter one, it's just 2 pages. And on the final number, page 17 here, as you can see at the bottom, you have a scoring, which includes the different areas and how we would categorize it. And you can add any of your points and discussions that in this area here. So now you've completed the Good Governance Index checklists, we have suggested a workshop exercise to help you plan and improve your governance structures. The guidance for this workshop can be found here at the start. This should usually take between around 90 minutes to 2 hours, so it can be done quite quickly within a day, and we expect everybody who within the Sun Civil Society Alliance to work together on this. Of course, the Civil Society Network Secretariat is available to help you develop any of the documentation and talk through this. So if you would like to invite your Sun Civil Society Secretariat focal person, we're more than welcome and more than happy to join you for these workshops to work through them with you and work on the next steps. In this workshop exercise, the groups will review the comments and suggestions from the first index checklist and set objectives, activities, a timeline, and who is responsible and what resources are needed to complete. This is mainly to focus on the key document structures and processes that are absent and need to be created in development or in place but need to be reviewed. As you can see here, governance, sustainability, and diversity and inclusion. The objectives of how you will achieve what you need to achieve to reach that area of work, activities that you can do to do that, the timeline that you have set yourselves to achieve that, who will be responsible within the Civil Society Alliance or the civil society effort, and the resources that you would need to do that. This is really helpful for us as a civil society secretariat to be able to support you on the resources that are needed and also to be able to work with you throughout that process. On page 20 here, we have some case studies on Civil Society Alliance's good governance. These are good practice examples of civil society alliances from different regions who have successfully strengthened their governance processes and systems. So we recommend that you read these for inspiration and for guidance and to follow the links for more information. So as you can see, there are some links here in the text that you can follow that will provide you with more information on how to improve those certain areas that their good governance, the good practice are showcasing. And then on the final page, there are some resources and further reading. So the Sun Civil Society Network 3.0 strategy, the Sun Civil Society Network establishing a CSA guide, the Sun Movement's principles of engagement, the Sun Movement multi-stakeholder platform toolkit, and the MQ Sun toolkit on multi-sectoral planning for nutrition. You'll be familiar with some of these documents, but also if you are not, we recommend reading them as well. That concludes the Good Governance Guide. So we hope that civil society alliances and civil society efforts find this tool useful to help them in developing and strengthening their governance processes and systems. We see that those CSAs, that civil society alliances that have the strongest governance structures and processes are more likely to be sustainable, get access to key resources, and ultimately more instrumental in ending malnutrition in their country and globally. And we know that they are able to access these resources far better and far greater than civil society alliances that don't have these structures in place. But please do reach out to the Sun Civil Society Network Secretariat, focal point in the first instance, but also all of us are here to support for any further information, and we will be happy to work through these processes with you. Thank you.